another edition of This Week in Review, the show in which we give you the rundowns of the goings on in the entertainment industry. We know that, as I said, that you are busy. So, we try to give you the spark notes, if you will, or just the highlights of what's been going on entertainment wise. And it runs the gamut, whether it's film and TV, sports, music, theater, whatever the case may be. Under that umbrella of entertainment, we try to help you guys out and give you a rundown of what happened over the last week. And with the idea of trying to cover, a week's worth of information, I'm not going to be alone as always in talking about some of these topics. So once again, I want to welcome back Spillman, aka Spills. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I haven't pissed off the Swifties this weekend, so I'm doing good. Even though the Travis Kelsey is not, that their logo is a logo that's possibly controversial, but we don't need to talk about that because we don't need to actually go into it. But happy to be here another week. September's over. How 2023 blew past so fast, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, because we're in the burrs now, because it's going to be burr, and it's going to be 2024 before you know it. So get your candy, your turkey, and your Christmas gifts all together, because we got to get all that together, ladies and gentlemen.
For sure, for sure. Now, just to start us off today, we're going to run into the film and TV news. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know that there was a tentative deal that was reached with WGA. However, that hasn't extended to some of the other strikes that are going on. We do still have the SAG strike that's still happening. And of course, we still have the video game strike on happening where there 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 wasn't a deal that was reached. Put it that way. It wasn't a deal that was reached in terms of what they were trying to do. SAG and AFTRA was trying to do in their talks with the video game industry. And just to quote the statement, the joint statement made by them in not reaching a deal. This is from the union and the video game industry. SAG, AFTRA, and video game employers concluded scheduled negotiations for the interactive media agreement. No deal was reached, and the current agreement will remain in effect while the parties make final efforts to reach a deal. Now, there are some companies that would be a part of these strike companies, and it's a pretty extensive list. It's basically a who's who of many of the companies that we recognize in the video game industry, whether it's Activation Productions, Blonde Light LLC, Disney Character Voices Inc., Electronic Arts Productions Inc., Epic Games Inc. Let me see, for Formosa Interactive LLC, Insomniac Games Inc., Take Two Productions, VoiceWord Productions Inc., and WB Games. Now, Spillman, obviously it's great that we do have some updates and some movement when it comes to the strikes and I know we were talking about it last week of there being a possibility that things will move forward with the WGA. And of course, it's great that they were able to reach a tentative deal, but the work is not done. We still have SAG after still ongoing, and we still have this matter with the video game industry too. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just excited that they've come to a deal with the writers. Since I've been on this podcast, I've always talked about how important the writers are, and you know, um, without somebody to skeleton out everything and give everybody else who has jobs in this industry a map of what they need to do, it's kind of impossible to do these kind of things. I'm happy that they did find a resolution. The greed is at an all-time high for the people at the top. There's no other way to put it. They're talking about points on things and talking about shareholders, but really they're talking about greed. You can frame it how you want to, but these people work very hard, and they make more than they make the companies way more money than they get paid. So sharing profits with the employees is good for everyone, and karmically, economically, and everything. I'm happy to see that they're moving forward, but we just got to do better with how we support these people and these products, and we got to be a lot more cognizant of who we work with. The video game thing is going to be a big issue, and I think it's going to be an even bigger issue moving forward as video games move away from physical media. I've talked with my friends for years. They say video games will never go past physical media because it's kind of a toy, but so much of the consumer base for video games is no longer 14 to 15-year-old kids like it was when we were kids.
Absolutely.
So many
Absolutely.
games are meant for grown men. That's why you don't get player two games no more. They don't even who's player two. You live in an apartment by yourself playing this PlayStation 5. Nobody's playing the PlayStation 5 with their little brothers anymore because they can't afford them. But I just see that we have a lot more to do with these products. People will squeeze every dime they can out of this stuff, just like we've said. I'd like to see the video game people get some money before they go to video game streaming because it's coming. PlayStation Network, Xbox. Um,
I would argue it's
uh,
already here.
it's already here.
I would
It's already
honestly
here,
argue it's
but it's
already
not.
here.
But there's still a section in the store. So to me, the majority, like video game, and that's one thing too, is video game purists are kind of like music purists. People that really play video games, they still buy a lot of discs, they
Yeah,
trade discs, and they do
yeah,
that. That's how GameStop is still open. There also hasn't been an effective Netflix type platform for streaming
that's
video
fair.
games.
That's fair.
I think that if I think that the real frontier is if Xbox and Sony, which would be bad for their own business because they would cannibalize each other, if they would make a service that would be on both, that you could play exclusives on whatever console. So, like if there was a PlayStation Netflix or an Xbox type Netflix, and that's really what we're fighting over now because the Netflix thing came in before we had an idea on what the money was on it. They even tried to sell to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster was like, "Get out of here. We don't know why would anyone want to have a email version or even streaming before streaming even was an idea." So to continue with the the kind of things of how these economies have gone in my eyes. I'm not an expert, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, but I do have a little bit of experience seeing what they do. And I think that really these video game people are in for the long haul because they don't want to have to pay people for every single time that Mario gets streamed or that Grand Theft Auto gets streamed or something like that. But honestly, they have to because just because you have my game license and my game is on your platform doesn't mean you don't have to pay me to use my work because that's essentially what it is. It's my work. So to me, I just think that that's what they need to focus on, and we'll see. Hopefully, we can get those likes up. We see one of y'all in the chat. Go ahead, hit that like button for us. But
Appreciate
yeah,
the person that
please
we
hit
have
the
watching.
like.
But
Please hit
to
the
carry
like.
on, I was gonna say to carry on from what you were saying. I understand what you're saying when it comes to just that idea of that trend that we have with video games, where I feel like when we were growing up, because we're roughly the same age. We're not
Hmm.
exactly the same age, but we're roughly the same age. So came up roughly around the same time. So there was a lot more of a, I feel like, honestly, like a party kind of component when it came to video games, where you're right. There were a lot of games that had you playing together, with your friends, with a group of friends over any, given game. And nowadays we're seeing far more games that are interactive. Now, I would argue that we still have that component of a two-player. It's just that because of how sophisticated games have gotten, that we don't have that component of being in the same space as frequently when it comes to our gaming. So
Yeah.
like, because of our technology now, there's no need to have your friend right there in the same spot with you as frequently as it would have been, when we were coming up, where like if you wanted to play that game together, you needed to have that person there. And you don't need that these days. Like a person can be, in Australia, they can be anywhere, and you could amass them from all parts of the world at the same time simultaneously from the comfort of your home without actually ever seeing the other player. So like, yeah, we do have that component of not necessarily having two plays, but I would say more so with the idea of not having that community capacity of being in the same space at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. But we're dealing with the same issues here. I mean, we were dealing with the issues of wages and AI, and just as it is with film and TV, there's billions upon billions, yes, billions with a B, of how much money is made in video games. People kind of sleep on video games, like I feel, and even within the entertainment community, because I have a lot of have friends who do voice work, whether it's with film and TV or with games, and they've been able to carve out a career for themselves and to carve out work for themselves in video games, even when they're not doing a television show or a film. And they even talk to me about it, of sometimes that their colleagues will say, oh, you're doing video games, is everything good? And they're like, yeah, like I make just as much, I'm do
These
okay in video
checks
games.
still get green dollars
Right,
at the
right. I
end of
still
the
I
day.
still make some money off of video games, so don't sleep on video games. So, but I mean, video games are now so sophisticated, like I was mentioning at the top of, and there have been so many times, like in looking at games these days, where like you have to do like a double take to realize that it's a game that you're watching and not like a live television series or a live movie. Like it is just that immersive. But still, with all of that said, while it's great, as you said, that we have, you know the WGA having that deal made, hopefully, as I mentioned last week, that will help provide some momentum in moving along, the other, the SAG and after strike that we still have that's ongoing, and that they're able to reach a deal as well, and they're able to resolve this matter even with the video games also. It's a good sign if you're able to resolve, one component of it, that where we might be able to move forward, with the others. So fingers crossed that that is able, those deals are able to get through. But another component that I wanted to also include with this, that I didn't mention at the top in terms of some of these stories with the strike, is that there also was another component to this, in which it was, and this is in a story in Deadline, that studios are now trying to have a put together have a lobbying group. So in that story, I believe the group is listed as Streaming Innovation Alliance, which includes companies such as Netflix, Max, Paramount, Disney, Peacock, Afro Land TV, Televisia, Univision, Vault Access, VIX, a whole bunch of them. And essentially, it was formed to, based on this, what was discussed in the article, was formed over concerns among members of Congress over streaming, and whether regulations needed to be applied to the service, in terms of like data collection and privacy. So that group, aside from that concern, and to kind of combat that concern, they are also forming it, to as a means of providing advocacy for federal and state policies that impact these services. So I just find it interesting, that we have, the story about a lobbying group, where a lot of times, you see it a lot with even other industries, when there's a little bit of pushback on, things that they are being, accused of, they'll try to find a back door someplace else. I hate to be, that person, but they'll try to find a way elsewhere to, gain some influence. So, and by gaining that influence, and by having, influence over, policy, that provides that can potentially provide influence elsewhere. So, what are your thoughts on this of that story of the formation of doing this lobbying group?
Well, I think that it's just obviously, how you have to do business here in America nowadays. Instead of having, these, because really what should happen is there should be a law that says that you can't like use AI to take, let's say, James Earl Jones's voice, so that you can have him being Darth Vader for the in perpetuity, saying that you own him and his voice is your voice for Darth Vader. And if anyone uses that voice or uses AI to use that voice, you can sue them. But his family and the people that come from him don't get anything from it. But I doubt that'll ever happen because of the reasons we've obviously outlined here. You're going to have a lot of people that, or companies, not even people, we're talking about companies here. A lot of companies who are making billions and billions of dollars on these kind of decisions. And they're going to need some help to juice the levers, because John Q. Public is not going to care about the billions of dollars that these companies stand to lose or gain if they can continue to use James Earl Jones's voice in perpetuity. So I just think that again, this is just how the game is played. They got money to grease the wheels, and that's what they're doing at this point. Like I said in the last segment, the streaming platforms do not have these kind of things ironed out before they started streaming. So they've been reaping money, reaping money, reaping money, and it's been okay. They haven't been paying people because it was a novel business model, but eventually it's going to get to the point where, hey, you got to pay these people. And America, they don't like paying people for the work they do. I don't know what it is about this country. Something that happened maybe sometime, but we don't like paying people for their work, no matter who you are. So it just frustrates everyday people. And obviously, common sense would tell you you should be help. The people that put the food on your table also deserve to eat. If they putting food on your table, you got to feed them too. But so many of these companies do not believe in that. It's just sad to me. The AI thing adds an even bigger wrinkle to it because it absorbs writing samples and everything from people that they've used. Let's say you've been a journalist for 20 years or a writer for 20 years. The AI can scan whatever you've written in the last 20 years and write something that seemingly seems like it was something you wrote. So it's a very scary thing as far as labor is concerned. It's another thing that they use to um, take down a peg. Like, if we look at it, these jobs that we're talking about are the prestige jobs we always talk about. Like, if somebody told you you were at a bar, somebody told you, oh, I write video games for a living, or I do this for a living, you say, oh man, that person must be doing great. But more and more, we're seeing that they're not, because it's going up the ladder of wealth inequality, and it's starting to affect jobs that we have honestly historically been like, that's the great job. You go to Columbia University, you go to Berkeley, Caltech, all these kind of fancy schools, to be in these studios and on these video game developers and all that. But it's not paying like it used to. So they need to do something. Sadly, the unions are not going to be lobbying with the same fervor, which they should, because they really need to represent um, views of labor and hold up labor. But that's a topic for a different podcast on a different topic. But I just think that it's business as usual, as they say.
Yeah, for sure. So, with that being said, we're going to switch gears over to another industry, and they're somewhat connected based on what we're talking about. You probably see it in the title, but I'll hop into some of the things that have happened in the world of sports first before it segues into music, because there is a connection there. But getting into the NBA first, there's been some movement
Hmm.
among some teams. Um, we had a three-way trade between three teams, and the names on here are pretty staggering in terms of where the movement of some of these players have gone. So we have Damian Lillard, if you've been keeping up with Lillard and his aspirations to be a part of the Heat, he didn't get his wish. He did get his wish of being moved, but it just wasn't to the team that he was aspiring to get, that he was hoping to get to. But um, one could argue it's just as comparable of a choice, which is the Bucks. You have the Trailblazers that received True Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, a 2029 unprotected first round pick, 2028, and a 2030 unprotected pick. And the Suns get Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Keon Johnson, and Nasir Little. Now, there's some components in this trade, in this three-way trade that is, pretty, I guess it's interesting to see how it might work with those teams. Obviously, Lillard is the standout here of what we're talking about in terms of impact immediately, but I would also argue Holiday and Aiden with the Trailblazers. I feel is not really getting that much credit of how much of an impact that could be with their team. In terms of how it can improve their team defensively. Obviously, Lillard's going to be a big shot in the arm offensively for the Bucks, which is what they needed. Defense has never really been, I feel, the last few years, an issue that they've had. So they've always,
Mhm.
I would say, the big thing was getting some offensive firepower, which with Lillard they now have. But I feel like there's with that offensive firepower that they now have in Lillard, it's going to also sacrifice a little bit of their defensive prowess that they had in Holiday. But the Suns, considering how front loaded they are, if we're considering Bradley Beal, if we're considering what is it, Kevin Durant, and if we're
Mhm.
considering what's the other cat? I can't believe I'm brain farting my man's name. Um,
Book.
Booker, thank you, Booker. The fact that they're able to get Nurkic in there to give them some more size on the front end, um, I feel like it's a good pickup. I'm a little unsure about Allen because Allen, has a pretty checkered history with some of the stuff that he's done in his
He's a midsection guy. He likes
career.
that midsection,
Um,
as they say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this trade? And then we'll talk briefly about one of the other, one year deal apparently that's happened with another player that I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on. But go ahead, sir.
All right, so I'm gonna say here first that the Bucks are gonna win next year. I think that bold prediction, adding adding the dimension of Damian Lillard, stretching the floor out to the volleyball line. Um,
Like that,
that's
yeah.
that's what we call it, the 4 point or the mythical 4 point shot area. But pushing the ball out that far with somebody like Giannis, who is a black hole as far as attention goes. Both of their jobs would be tremendously easier. I love J. Rue Holiday. He did great in the finals that they won. But that next year, it was very apparent that they were not going to win because they don't have the offensive firepower that they need. What's the boy's name that plays with them? The
Middleton,
shooting guard. Middleton is a great guard, but he's not a primetime player. He would not
and he's
he
not,
would not
and
know.
recently he hasn't really been durable. So like it
Yeah,
gives them some more help there.
and they need somebody. He doesn't. Dame dribbles the ball. They need a ball handler since they got rid of Drew Holiday. But I just think that having Dame, a top 75 player. No one really has talked about this. They were saying when they made Dame a top 75 player, like, how did he make it? And other people like Dwight or other players not make it. And I see how you can make that argument. But I feel like if he gets the championship this year and then they be in a run in next year, we'll forget all about why he was a top 75 player because clearly offensively he's the business. He's been on teams that I don't think that people give him the credit that he should. He's been better than most of the other point guards in the league, not named Stephen Curry. Like I don't know another point guard since he's been in the league that's better than him. You could say Chris Paul's been better, but I disagree. He sent Chris Paul home several years. waving like this, say bye-bye, have a good day. You're gonna get traded again this year because I beat you again, and this team knows you're not the biz and I'm the biz. So I'm happy for that. The real question, though, because I feel like it's kind of a done deal that the Bucks are going to be championship contenders. It's going to be Bucks Nuggets, and I think the Bucks will beat the Nuggets just off of the fact that Giannis plays defense and Jamal can't check uh, Dame, and I just think that like the Suns were the other team in this, and I see why they were the other team because they had a real locker room problem. DeAndre Ayton, he didn't want to be there, and that was messing up the mojo. But I don't think that Nurkic and Grayson Allen are the pieces that they needed to put them over the hump. Like they've got a bunch of guys that score, maybe because Nurkic isn't a guy that cries a lot, but he's not durable. I don't think that he's durable. Hopefully he'll be ready for the playoffs, but he's a no-name center in the NBA. There's the longest time that I used to confuse him for Joker. I used to be like, yeah, isn't that Joker? And I'm like, no, that's not Joker. They just have kind of similar names and are from kind of similar places in the world. But the Blazers obviously they got DeAndre Ayton, who's a head case. We'll see if he's good, but who knows? They got Ayton, and then they got Drew Holiday, but I've heard that they're shopping him. So get ready to see Drew Holiday in that Lakers jersey, even though we named D'Angelo our starting point guard before we got into camp. But I think that this is a great move for the Bucks. This is a move that keeps Giannis in Milwaukee. They managed to hold on to all their real tough guys outside of the main trade piece. They kept Bobby Portis, who is a dog. They kept Middleton.
Yeah.
And they kept Splash Mountain. So like they got pieces that fit with Giannis to make Giannis the best player possible. And I think that those pieces also will fit very well with Damian Lillard. Middleton doesn't have the same height problems that what was Middleton's old partner that got us in I can't think of his name, but he needs because Dame is on the smaller side. Middleton is about 6'6", 6'7", so that'll help to even out some of his problems. They could probably put Middleton in a defensive position a little bit more, plus with Bobby Portis and all them boys. So I think that this is a great move for the Bucks, and it's a move they didn't want to have a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar happen again to them, and they could see that it was coming because Giannis is looking. He's like, man, I can get out of here in a second, man. I know I'm not from a big city, but I want to go to a big city and I want to be celebrated. I don't want it to be Milwaukee. Like I've never even. I know you haven't, and I know I haven't. I've never out of my lips said, man, I can't wait to visit that Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a fun place that I can't wait to visit. So I just think that it's great that he's got the piece that he needs because he was going to leave them and they were going to be high and dry. And the NBA does not want these small teams to lose it, and they don't want their their players that are not good to be that are good to be held back by legacy issues like a Charles Barkley. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Baby done woke up. Oh Lord, ladies and gentlemen. Yep. So yeah, we're probably gonna have some quiet, but I'm gonna try to keep it calm.
Okay. All right, no worries. I'll hop in there. I'll hop in there and basically say this is just the idea that you touched on most of those things already. I guess the big thing that I'll talk about is just touch on and highlight more is just that idea that whenever you have a move like this, and this is talking about the Bucks, you want to make sure, and you kind of alluded to it. You want to make sure that these players complement each other. While on paper it looks very good to have a whole bunch of players that are extremely talented, whether it's defensively or offensively, if they don't really complement each other, then we've seen it time and time again where it can fall apart because those skill sets don't really complement each other that well. That's my concern with the Suns. I mean, yes, you have some supremely talented wing players, but at some point, someone is going to need to be the player it needs to be the point guard. And you don't really have a point guard. Booker is not really a point guard. He's more of a shooting guard. Bradley Beal is not really a point guard. He's more of a shooting guard. So
Yes.
yes, you have all those talented players, but do they complement each other? And I feel like with the Greek Freak and with Dame Time, they do because they complement skills that the other player does not bring to the table. Giannis is not coming, as you said, from volleyball range to shoot jumpers, but Dame Time can do that. You know, Dame Time, he's not, as you said, a huge player, but Giannis is and can be that defensive presence. And so if you're
Hmm.
talking about even in a half court set, Dame Time, like he's capable of bringing the ball up and alleviating some of the pressure off of Greek Freak. Now they're not going to be able just to do a
Boxing
zone
one. Yeah,
and
that
box
boxing
and
one is
one.
done.
It's not
It's
going to
done.
work. It's not going to work. They're going to have to find some other strategy to make that work. Now that you have an offensive juggernaut like Dame Time,
Hmm.
so that's a terrific fit. Um, my only concern there is what they gave up with some of the picks. But I mean, you're trying to win now, so you're going to have to give up something. And as you said, they managed to do that without really basically destroying a lot of their core, the core players that they have in their lineup, and not,
Right.
getting rid of them. They still have Middleton in there. So, I'm not ready to say that that they're going to win a championship, but I do believe that they're going to be right there because I still feel that people are still sleeping on the Celtics. I still feel that the Celtics are deep enough where
They're gonna trade one of them two boys. They're gonna trade one
they
of
can
them
still
now
go.
because they're not gonna be able to beat the Bucks. They're not gonna be able to beat the Bucks. I foresee Joel Embiid is gonna be wearing
All
purple
right,
and
all
gold
right.
before you know it.
We will revisit this come
JoJo
final
is
time.
coming
We
to the
will
Lakers.
revisit it
I'm telling
and
you.
see where things stand. But the other component that I wanted to get into briefly, which I don't feel is getting enough attention, is the 1 year deal that Rudy Gay signed with the Golden State Warriors. Um, I'm getting some deja vu. I'll be honest with you, Spills, of what transpired with Wiggins, where a lot of people are like, oh, okay, Wiggins is going to the Warriors. Okay, yeah, sure. I feel that this is a good move with the Warriors because Rudy Gay, not only does he give you size, but he gives you a lot of versatility, which is a staple of what we have with the Warriors of having players that can do multiple things and are not one dimensional in terms of their skill set. So like I love that they were able to pick up Rudy Gay. I'm interested to see how he's going to function within the components of that team, of their lineup, of their rotation. But I feel like in the same way that people slept on Wiggins joining the Warriors, we're going to have a similar thing happening here with Rudy Gay. But by the look in your face, I'm picturing that you're like somewhat skeptical, just a little bit, just a little bit. It's okay. It's okay, but we'll revisit this, and then we'll see how that look on your face is slightly different. But go ahead, sir.
I'm just amazed that you got on your computer box and typed out a topic for us about a 40-year-old basketball player. Rudy Gay is 40 years old. Like I love him. I didn't know he was still playing basketball. My friend sent me a thing about Rudy Gay. I think he got traded recently. He got traded and released. And I think he was in one of the trades earlier in the summer. And I was like, who is Rudy Gay? That's not for us. That's not for us. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
You're fine. You're fine. It is
We've got
live, y'all.
a
It's
munchkin.
all
This is
good.
live TV. We've got a munchkin going on here. But Rudy is good. He was good with Memphis. He was good and with the Spurs. He's versatile. He does all. He's a 5 tool player, as they say. He does everything. Um, he's not 7 feet tall. Like we were here last week talking about this, ladies and gentlemen, and y'all need a tall person, and y'all don't have a tall person. So
But I'm
um,
saying, like, here's my thing. The reason why I say this is because you don't need him to do a lot. You don't need him to do a whole bunch. Like you literally can have him come in. third string of rotational players, your second string of rotational players, and all you need to do is him to provide, some some energy to you, whether it's defensively or offensively. You don't need him to be your second or third option, but he
For
gives
sure.
you
For
but he
sure.
gives you more to work with
He's a locker room guy.
once you have that first string, off the floor.
I mean, he'll be with the third string, honestly, but it's okay. I just, hey,
Rudy
hey,
Gay is
I
third
understand.
string. I will take it. Rudy
I
Gay is
mean,
third string. I will take it against any other third string
I'll
rotation.
give it to you at this point. At this point, I'd be surprised if he plays. Um, what is it? It's 48 minutes. I'll be surprised if he averages 7 minutes a game this year. If five
Okay,
minutes a game this year
that's
would be
fair.
very
Okay, I
surprising.
love the skepticism. I love
I
it.
don't.
I love it.
It's not skepticism. It's just like this is an old man. Like, and it's not like he's LeBron old. Like,
But we've but correct me if I'm wrong. We've seen this before where sometimes just a change of scenery, sometimes just a change of scenery is all it takes for a player to be able to revitalize themselves. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, where you're saying that he's older, and you're right, he is older. But
Wiggins is like 15 years younger than him. Like you saying
I
Wiggins,
get
like
you,
they not
I
15
get
years
you.
apart. Like it's like,
I
bro,
get you,
that
but at the
they
same
almost
time,
could be
I
father and
feel
son.
like sometimes it takes a change of scenery, and this isn't anything. Like when you switch jobs, when move somewhere, like even when you like physically move somewhere, if you're thinking about that, a lot of times it only takes that change of scenery to make all the difference. So, and then on top of that too, when you know that there is a possibility and there's a pedigree of getting to the finals and potentially getting another ring, I still feel like he may have some gas in the tank, and may still surprise people. So we'll see. um Switching gear.
I
Go
will
ahead.
say before we go, this is the kind of pickups that championship teams do, where they're like, we paid less for this guy, but he's a known quantity and we know what kind of stuff he's going to provide. He may not be a splashier player, but he's going to get in and get them 5 minutes, and we'll have production out of those 5 minutes instead of some
Exactly.
splashier guy. Maybe a pool of a player coming in and messing up the mojo, getting in fights with people and stuff. That's not what you need on your team. So
No,
I do
no,
understand
don't
him
need that in
telling
the
you.
locker
So
room. So,
yeah, that's very
um,
true.
but switching gears, and it's still within the subject of sports. Over this week, there was an announcement made that Usher will be the headliner, will be performing at the Super Bowl this year. Of course, as you well know, the Super Bowl is happening in Vegas, so I look forward to being there this year and checking out the festivities that Vegas will have to offer a Super Bowl. Like it's gonna be pretty insane. And then on top of that too, over the course of the week, aside from the announcement of him being performing and at the Super Bowl halftime show, he also made the announcement of a new album coming. So this is kind of, I guess, a mini segue into music as well. So, what are your thoughts on Usher, being our performer for the halftime show at this coming year's Super Bowl, and the additional announcement that was made, I want to say via Twitter, that he has a new album coming at around that same time.
I think the album coming at the same time is just, if you a businessman, that's what you
It's
would
very
do. If
smart
if I
marketing.
was going to be on TV in front of the whole world, I for sure would tell you, hey y'all, go ahead, get that album. That's just goes without saying. That wasn't the first thing I thought of. The first thing I thought of was, wait, does this mean that Little John is going to be on the Super Bowl?
He
Then I
could.
was like,
He could.
wait,
He could. Stranger
is
things have happened.
is
He could.
somebody going to
Because
say Skeet on the radio? Somebody going to say Skeet on the
he's gonna
radio.
go through. He's gonna go through his
He's
greatest
gonna let
hits.
him. He's gonna let
Of course,
everybody. He gotta let Lil Jon on there because Lil Jon
Nicki
made it
Minaj,
real.
Nicki Minaj,
Yes,
all of them.
So
So
I'm excited. Luda's going to be on there. You got to have Luda because his biggest song is Ludacris and Lil Jon. So we're going to see Lil Jon and Ludacris on the Super Bowl stage. I can't wait. Even though all of these people that I like being on the Super Bowl has made me further realize, and I'm an old man now. I'm an
right,
old man, and they put old man songs on for old men to watch the Super Bowl because that's who watches it. The old men who buy albums from artists who haven't put out an album in 5 or 10 years, or however long it's been since Usher put out his last album. I think the No Limit song was the last song he had that I could remember. I'm not. I am a huge Usher fan. I'm not going to tell that lie. I was going to say I'm not a huge Usher fan. I'm lying. In 2004, I was telling the girls to let it burn, ladies and gentlemen. I was telling all of the girls that. Oh, if you got it bad, you got to let it burn. You got to let it burn, ladies. Let it burn.
uh, be be that as it may, that's hilarious. Uh,
Yeah.
it I
What's
mean,
your favorite?
just as
What's
you,
your favorite Usher track? What's your favorite Usher track?
I
Because
was gonna
you like
say,
R&B and stuff like that.
My Way. I'll take it way
My
back.
way.
My Way was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, there are a couple of them in there. There Goes My Baby.
Oh,
That one's like that.
that's a classic.
Yeah, that one. But you touched on them, just now, a few of them. Like I said, the one with Nicki Minaj, that's my joint too. From a couple of years ago. But as you said, awesome marketing,
Oh
awesome
yeah.
marketing strategy because we've seen it time and time again where even when there are artists that haven't really been putting out music, when they come to the Super Bowl, all of their
Make
downloads of
money.
their music
That's right.
go crazy.
They get
So
them
that
0.0001 cents or whatever they get.
to add to that new music outside of your greatest hits, brilliant.
Brilliant.
Brilliant marketing. Brilliant
Brilliant.
marketing. But as I said, I'm looking forward to it. Super Bowl. I got to get you out there to one of the to the Super Bowl one of these years spills. But
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
the
We got to do that.
festivities are always fun. So I'm looking forward to what it's going to be like with it being in Vegas this year. It's going to be insane. So, but that's going to wrap up our show of This Week in Review this week. Of course, I want to thank Spills for, hopping on and talking about, some of these topics that have been making the rounds, not in film and TV, sports, music. As I said, we try to give you at least a spark notes, if you will, of some of the things that are going on over the last week. Before we sign off, Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you?
All right. You can find me up in the bathtub rubber dubbing on Instagram at Truly Spill. I can't wait for this Usher Super Bowl. I'm excited for that. You can see me there. Make sure that if you come into the live, please get that thumbs up because these likes and these subscribes are how we monetize and make sure that this is at the top of the Instagram page. So please make sure you hit those likes, ladies and gentlemen.
So you will not find me rubber dubbing in the tub in the tub near you, but you can find me on X at Brandon Choi ENT and Brandon Choi _ ENT on Instagram. Keep it locked tomorrow because we'll be talking some Star Trek Lower Decks with some of the other team, Chris and Josh. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that, be also on the lookout for some of the shows that are on the way. Some of the events that we do have coming up. I can announce now that we do have Virginia Film Fest that will be happening in a couple of weeks, as well as New York Comic Con happening. So I'll try to put out some posts about that on our IG. But again, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks again to Spills. This is This Week in Review signing off. Catch y'all later.
Don't forget
Peace.
spam that like button. Spam it.